Greetings, my fellow decrepits, invalids, and other sick people. I hope you're doing well today and that you're fighting the good fight. So, right off the bat, we got to clarify something because the thumbnail is going to make some people think that this is a political video. This is not political in any way whatsoever. RFK just made a speech recently, and at the end of his speech, he talked quite extensively about the chronic disease epidemic that is plaguing our nation, and he had some really interesting points that I thought maybe we should talk about. So I just wanted to be very clear about that. I'm not using any clips of his that include any of his political opinions or stances, and I'm not sharing any of my own either. This channel is not about that. This channel is about chronic disease and finding ways to try to increase our fitness, activity, and our health while battling with chronic disease. With that little piece of housekeeping out of the way, I just want to say that if you enjoy the content that we make on this channel, I'd really appreciate it if you give a smack to that like button, a ring a ding ding to that notification bell, and maybe even consider subscribing and sharing this content with your family and friends. Now, without further ado, let's get into the video. Two last quick notes, I apologize. My video quality is a little bit lower today. I'm working off of an old laptop, so I'll see if I can fix that up a bit in post. And then if I sound stuffy today, my family and I, we just got through a cold. I'm feeling much better, but I'm still a little congested. And so if I sound a little stuffy, that's why. So I apologize. So even with my little clarification at the beginning of the video, you may be wondering, why on earth are we talking about RFK? And why does his opinion matter on chronic disease? Well, for those who don't know, RFK has actually been in the environmental and medicinal and disease kind of environment for over 20 years now. He basically saw lots of friends and family friends, his kids and the friends of his kids. I just kind of saw this generational increase of disease and illness increasing through the years. And I watched some of his stuff more recently just because he's been in the spotlight. But he has some very interesting opinions on health and on the foods we eat and how we should be trying to combat some of that stuff. And so I do think he's actually a qualified person when you to speak on the matter. When you listen to him, he sounds very knowledgeable, very intelligent. And this is the only slightly political statement I'll make, and I apologize, is that in my lifetime at least, I've heard politicians from every angle talk about how we need to lower healthcare costs and make healthcare affordable. And what he talks a lot about is trying to get to the root of why are people getting sick. And I find that very unique and very interesting. And so he, gives some examples of, other countries that they work on their patients with making better choices regarding their diet and exercise before giving them medication. Whereas in our country, we tend to make the medication the first step. And that's kind of what I've learned in my own experience with my health issues is the medication is the first thing that we're handed. I'm very grateful right now to be working with a doctor who, although we are using medication, we are constantly looking for more natural ways to change my lifestyle and to change my own habits to try and make me healthy and my body function the way it should without trying to mess me up with a bunch of chemicals and drugs. So I like his approach on a lot of those things. So I shouldn't ramble too much. I want to get to his videos. That I'm going to play a little clip, and we're going to talk. I'll play several clips from his speech, and we'll talk about them as we go. So here's the first one.
Today, 2/3, we spend more on healthcare than any country on earth, twice what they pay in Europe. And yet we have the worst health outcomes of any nation in the world. We're about 79th in health outcomes behind Costa Rica and Nicaragua and Mongolia and other countries.
So I'm going to stop right there. So to me, that was one of the most mind-blowing statements he made in the whole thing. I didn't realize this, but the fact that the U.S. is the number one spender on healthcare in the world, and we are actually the only country that comes close, he mentions, is Europe. We spend 2 times more on healthcare than they do. And despite that fact, we are still one of the worst countries in terms of the health of our citizens. So to me, that's mind blowing, because we spend so much of our time focusing on trying to find ways to get affordable healthcare, and yet, despite the fact that we spend the most on healthcare, we're the sickest people in the world, basically. And so, to me, like that's very interesting, that also tells me that we're probably doing something wrong with our health. And if our number one treatment is simply giving patients different drugs and pills to try and cover up the symptoms, well, we're never really solving the issue. And I grew up in a family, and I still believe this, where we're very for modern medicine, very pro modern medicine. I think modern medicine's great. There's all kinds of amazing benefits from it. But I think we've also developed a mindset in this country that the doctors can do no wrong, and that whatever the doctors say is the final word, and we have to take them at everything they say. And yet here we are, we're presented with evidence of the fact that we spend the most, we probably have some of the best researchers in the world, and despite all of that fact, we're still super sick. And so clearly we're doing something wrong. And so the question we have to start asking ourselves is what's a better way forward? What's actually going to help us figure out why we're getting sick, and then let's solve that issue and move forward rather than trying to reduce healthcare costs. Because realistically, if we make everyone healthy, then no one has healthcare costs. So our focus should actually just be getting people healthy, not reducing the cost of healthcare. Let's see what he says next.
Nobody has a chronic disease burden like we have. And during a COVID epidemic, we had the highest body count of any country in the world. We had 16% of the COVID deaths, and we only have 4.2% of the world's population. And CDC says that's because we are the sickest people on earth. We have the highest chronic disease rate on earth. And the average American who died from COVID had 3.8 chronic diseases. So these were people.
So I'm going to stop it there. So the average person that died from COVID had 3.8 chronic diseases. That's an insane number. I'm dealing with one chronic illness, and the fact that we had such a large number of people dealing with multiple is just insane. I don't know what the national number is, regardless of COVID. Even just for our COVID deaths, basically, like what that seems to prove to me, if the majority of our COVID deaths were from people with 3 to 4 chronic conditions, then the issue may not necessarily have been COVID, but the fact that our people, our citizens aren't healthy enough, their immune systems aren't healthy enough to withstand new viruses. So we need to work on getting people well and healing them of their diseases, so that when something like a pandemic does come along, our bodies can actually function at the capacity needed to fight these things. Because right there, I mean, that seems to me like those are preventable deaths, if we could solve the chronic disease epidemic. So very interesting, but very very sad. Actually, right here, he answers my question.
2/3 of American adults and children
So
suffer
right
from
there.
chronic health issues.
Actually, sorry. Let me
50 years ago, that number was less than 1%. So we've gone from 1%.
Okay, that's where I want to stop him. Right now, 2/3 of Americans are suffering with some kind of chronic illness. That is a vast majority. And compared to 50 years ago, where 1% of the population had chronic illness. So the question is, what's changed in that 50 years? It's hard because we could throw all kinds of answers on the board. We could say that it's because we're more sedentary, there's more processed foods, there's more chemicals in the environment, and I mean, there's probably all kinds of reasons. This needs to be our top priority, is getting people healthy. That number is just insane. Two-thirds of Americans, like, I had no idea. I'm very new to the chronic disease world. I've been sick for a year and a half with my disease, and I'm being humbled, and I'm learning a lot. I'm trying to be very proactive in this process. That's why I started this YouTube channel. I don't want to just sit here idly. I want to get better. I'm trying to learn, and I'm trying to see if I can help other people along the way. And the more I look into this, the more I realize how big of a problem it is, and that I was actually the minority before this happened. Just being a young, healthy person, because here clearly 2/3 of Americans are suffering from chronic disease. Like that's just an insane number. So, but again, the question still remains: what do we do about that? Okay, right here he's going to be talking about autism rates in our
In the
country.
year 2000, the autism rate was 1 in 1,500. Now, autism rates in kids are 1 in 36, according to CDC nationally. Nobody's talking about this. 1 in every 22 kids in California has autism. And this is a crisis that 77% of our kids are too disabled to serve in the United States military.
That's a humbling fact right there. That 77% of our kids are too disabled to serve in our military. If if that's not a health crisis, I don't know what is. We are living in very crazy times, but the health of our families and our children, needs to be top priority. Um, and 1 in 36 kids having autism. I mean, that just seems like a high percentage. I mean, I get that's probably only what, like roughly 2 or 3% somewhere in there, but that's still too much. And I don't know. So these are a lot of the points she's making about some of the problems, the statistics about what kind of bad shape we're in. I want to move forward to where he talks a little bit about some of the things that we could change. So right here, RFK starts to talk about what his opinion is on the two main culprits of what's causing this epidemic. So let's listen to him.
So what's causing this suffering? I'll name two culprits. First and the worst is ultra-processed food. About 70% of American children's diet is ultra-processed. That means industrial manufactured in a factory. These foods consist primarily of processed sugar, ultra-processed grains, and seed oils. Laboratory scientists who many of whom formerly worked for the cigarette industry, which purchased all the big food companies in the 1970s and 80s, deployed thousands of scientists to figure out new chemicals to make the food more addictive. And these ingredients didn't exist 100 years ago.
Side note, when you listen to him, you can clearly tell he's just a knowledgeable guy. He knows his history. Very, very smart. Processed foods. I think we all know that's an issue, but the hard thing is, how do we change that? Some advice I would give. Uh, it's hard because it all costs money. That's the reality, and I'm leaving out the political statements. So I can't fully give his reasons, but there's a reality that the foods that most people can afford are probably the most processed, and even like our fruits and vegetables with all the pesticides and chemicals they spray everything with now, it's not good for us. So what I would recommend, in the last year or so, my wife has taken up a little bit of gardening. Now, before you say you don't have room for gardening, I just want to say I live in a condo on the second floor, so my wife has some little uh, like bucket pots, or sorry, railing pots we put on the railing of our balcony, and she has a few pots on the ground. And so my wife has been gardening, and we don't get much. I'm not going to act like we're bringing in a ton, but there are days where we get to make a salad and we get to use spinach and lettuce from our garden. Or if I'm making a sandwich, I get to pull up, uh, some green onions and throw them on that. Or the other night we had potatoes. Um, it only lasted us one meal. One meal out of the whole year, we got potatoes, but they were from our own garden, and so anything you can do to try to find little ways to grow food yourself, that way you're not putting anything into it, is great. Even doing like herbs and stuff in the windowsill is something super easy you can do. The idea is to start small and kind of build up from there. Other things you can do is for like your meat, um, chicken or beef, try to find a local butcher. Look into them and try to see if they do like grass fed, beef, and if their chicken is free range, and try to figure out what they eat and if they're all natural. So there are steps we can start to take. The big obvious ones obviously is getting rid of like the box cereals, the packaged snacks, anything that's like pre-packaged is very likely not good for us. And so I think the key, if you're battling with a chronic condition, is to try to take these small little steps to, and like that's what I'm doing. I haven't made a drastic change overnight. We've been trying to make small, subtle changes along the way that'll bring us closer and slowly towards our goal of being more, getting more natural nutrients into our diets and trying to make those changes gradually. So just start small. If you're really dealing with something, then maybe try to make a drastic change. Habits, in my opinion, are always best developed, gradually. Um, that way you have time to adapt and get used to the new routine. So that's just kind of my thoughts on the matter. Okay, there's one last clip I want to play of RFK talking about school lunches, and then we will wrap things up.
Industry lobbyists have made sure that most of the food stamp lunch program, about 70% of food stamps and about 70 or 77% of school lunches are processed foods. There's no vegetables. There's nothing that you would want to eat. We are just poisoning the poor citizens. And that.
Okay, I'll stop it right there. 70% of school lunches is processed foods. It's been a little bit since I've been out of high school, um, but I know when I was there, everything was processed. Most kids every day ate pizza. I think that there was maybe like one healthy option every day. The healthy option was like a sub sandwich, and that's really not even that healthy. But I remember pretty much everything I ate in school was fried food of some sort or pizza. Um, comment down below what you ate in school. But I think that that's got to be a big change. And so again, I'm not talking about politics. I'm not telling you to do anything. I think the only thing I would encourage you to do is when you hear information like this, it's easy to blame the system and to blame the man, so to speak, and whoever's in charge. I think I would encourage you to take action into your own hands as much as possible. If you're sending your kids to school and you know they're eating processed foods, I know it's one extra thing to do in the morning or at night, but maybe make an effort of trying to make your kids a lunch for school. Then you can play a part in helping your kids get a better diet. Now I know that's not easy for everyone. I know lots of people are on like reduced lunch and stuff at school, and to it helps them to be able to pay for their meals. So I understand it's difficult, but maybe there's a way you could try to shoot for even once a week. Like maybe on Mondays we could, on the weekend, make up one meal for our kids to try and give them a healthy lunch on Monday. And obviously that doesn't counteract for everything else, but I think you just have to kind of try to take whatever you can back into your own hands and try to figure out how you can try to better the health of yourself and of your kids, and you have to be proactive about it. It's too easy to sit on the sidelines and just say, "Yep, the food industry has screwed everything up. It's all their fault," and woe is me. I can't do anything. I think you have to think of the small ways that you can make changes. If your kids are really into soda, or even if you yourself are really into soda, I was for a long time. Well, it's been quite a while now. Actually, it's probably been about 10 years. There was a point in my life where I drank a lot of soda, and I ended up getting a stomach ulcer. And long story short, the doctor told me to stop drinking soda for 30 days or something. And I have basically never had soda since. Maybe a Coke once a year, uh, but that's about it. I've really stuck to that change, and so just trying to find little ways to get less chemicals, less processed food into your body. I think these are all good goals to strive for, and something that we should be actively trying to pursue. And so, for my final thoughts, I just want to say when I watched this, I actually watched this speech, at least the second half of the speech, I watched it 3 times. There's a lot of information that he gave in that speech, and a lot of it that I didn't cover in this video. So if you want to see the whole thing, I'll take I'll leave a link down to the video I got it from down below. That way you can watch the rest of it for yourself if you'd like to. Anyway, I think the main point for us to take away from this is to recognize that our health is one of the most important things in our lives, because if we aren't healthy, we aren't living life to our fullest. We aren't reaching our best potential. The future for our kids isn't as bright. I think we need to take this seriously. We need to start thinking proactively about why isn't the health system working, and if so, like, for myself, I'm on medications right now, and I'm still trying to find ways that will help me eventually get off these medications. For the time being, they're helping me. I tried getting off of them once, and when I did that, I ended up stuck in bed again, and I couldn't get up. So I'm on them for a reason. I understand that, and the medical system and medicine is there for a reason as well. But I'm still actively trying to find ways to see if I can make certain changes in my life to help me get stronger, get healthier, and eventually get off of these things, and figure out what's really wrong with my body and how do I heal it. And so I've been on this like long game of, you know, trying to figure out, will this make me feel better? Nope. Okay. Will this make me feel better? Nope. Okay. And so like I'm going through like all these different things, and I'm constantly hearing about, new things. I've recently been reading a book on vitamin D, and how it's possible that we might need to be taking more of it than doctors recommend, especially if you live in a climate like I do, where we don't get a whole lot of sun. And all that to say, I think there's more for us to learn, but I think we have to be very proactive in our health. If you think about it, for thousands of years, I think everyone's grandmother used to know all these little health secrets, and they were very in tune with their bodies, and they knew all these little secrets to help you stay healthy. And I think we've lost that over time, and we've slowly just allowed our doctors and our medical system to tell us what to do. And don't get me wrong, they're smart and they're there for a reason. But I think we also need to take parts of our health back into our own hands and try to figure out how we can help manage it ourselves, and find ways to stay healthy at home. The best kind of medicine is preventative. The ideal situation for all of us should be that we go see our doctor once a year for a checkup, and the doctor says you're good and healthy. Like that's what we all want. And so we need to be striving for that point, that we just go to the doctor for our checkups. If something is seriously wrong, if you break a bone or something, like, doctors are there for a reason. But I think we need to be actively trying to get ourselves to a point where we're not relying on the medical system, but we're using the medical system as a helping hand, that they come alongside of us. Like, here is my health routine. This is how I stay healthy. Hey, doctor, I want you to come alongside me in this journey. And if I have questions, I want to come to you. If there's something wrong, I want to ask you and get your opinion. I think that's the best relationship between doctor and patient. But I think currently our relationship with doctors is more like the doctors are our drug dealers. And I have this problem. I need to feel better. Give me my drug. And so we go back to the doctor over and over and over again. And unfortunately, I think that we've kind of almost created the system ourselves in a way of, that's the expectation of the relationship. So, again, final thoughts. My friends, go out there, figure out what you can do on your own to boost your health. Think about some of the things that RFK said. I really think he brought up some interesting points and statistics. So think about those things. Take your health into your own hands. And I'm praying that each and every one of you watching this video can uh, take something away from this, and find a way to move forward in your health journey. So with that, my friends, thank you so much for joining for this discussion. If you enjoyed the video, I would really appreciate it if you did take a moment to subscribe. I'm trying to hit 100 subscribers by the end of the year. Last I looked, I was at 78, so we're not too far away. So if you enjoy it, I really would appreciate it if you would click that little button, join the community here. We're just a bunch of sick people trying to figure out how to do it together. So Thank you, my friends. God bless you, and we will see you in the next one.